Don't forget to click that subscribe and bell icon to receive a notification each time I upload a new video. Hi everyone, it's Mike here. So today I'm going to do another page in my Dylusions 8x8 journal, which is the one that Ian bought me for Christmas. So that was the virgin page, if you like, the first one, the maiden page that kicked off the journey in this journal. This little pile here are just a few bits and pieces that I put together when I was thinking about doing this art journal page. I thought, right, I'll start collecting bits and throw them in a pile into the page where I actually want to use them. So, and that's exactly what I'm going to do today. So I've got the Dina Wakley stencil, which is called Affirmations. Had this one for quite some time. There's my new stencil, one of my February stencils. This is called Kisses. Yep, for obvious reasons. I've got a sheet of music paper that's had the edges torn off. A sheet of collage paper or collage tissue paper from, again, Dina Wakley. It's that set. I think there's another one out now, but this is from the original set, which I'm going to use as my main focal, and also just a sheet of book text from a random book. Actually, it's from my stash of pages from random books that I've torn out when I've repurposed. So there you go. So I'm going to start off with layer number one, which is going to be fragments of this music paper. It is double-sided, don't know why. It looks as though it's actually been printed, but it's been printed double-sided, but yeah, your guess is as good as mine on that one. So I'm going to start off just by adding in some fragments in the back, just leave a bit of a space in between. So I'm just tearing like so, and then that piece there probably will come around about there, and we'll get stuck down like that. So that's going to be step number one. So shake it to wake it, Galleria acrylic matte medium. So I'll just pop the top without trying to splash it all over me. And then I'm just going to just move everything over, put a quick coat of the matte medium down, and I'm not bothered at all. In fact, I'm hoping to get at least a few kind of wrinkles in the paper on this one, because it's going to add to a little bit of background texture. And I'm not going mad as to go right up to the edge of the page, so I don't need my page protectors down today. So that one can go like that. Let's go straight over the top. And that one can go straight down there. Put them back in the sort of place or the position where we had them on, where we, what's the phrase that we often use when we place things down to start off with? Oh yes, audition them. When we auditioned the pieces. There we go. And then the final bit, it's going to go about there. Like I said, if I had pasted the back of these pieces of paper before putting them down, I wouldn't have got any wrinkles. But like I said, I actually wanted some wrinkles to start building up a little bit of texture. Right, I'm also now going to add some of that book text. So let's just rip that book text into sections. I'm going to keep a section back because I actually do want some circles punching out later. I've already got a circle punch to hand ready, so I want to just add a piece of that there. And it doesn't matter about not being able to read what the book text says. It's completely and utterly irrelevant. All we're having it's just a little bit of what we call it, underpapers. Not underpants, underpapers. That's just creating a little bit of interest, a little bit of texture in the background, so you're not just working on a plain background. Okay, so most of that matte medium, as you can see now, has been absorbed and used up, so even though it looked as though there was lots and lots and lots of it, there wasn't that much really. So I'm just going to drop my brush into some water. I've got a pen pot or water pot just to the side, and I'm going to dry that off, and then when it's dry, or dry enough to work on, I'll be right back and we can start adding some colour into the background. Right, that is pretty much dry. It's still warm. It's warm enough for me to not want to actually start putting anything down on it just yet. Give it a second or two just to cool down on its own. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will probably have already spotted that I've added a piece of book text just here at the bottom and another piece just up here at the top. As I was drying those 4 pieces, I thought that it could probably do with a couple more. So before it completely dried, I stuck them down, doing exactly the same thing, and then just carried on with the heat gun. Now that's pretty much cooled down enough for me to work on. I've also noticed as well, I've just realised, when I used my last Dylusions journal, I actually went through and glued 2 signatures together, because when they redid these journals, they didn't put the same thickness of card pages back in. On the original journals, they were a little bit thicker than this. So I glued 2 together. I haven't done it on this one because I forgot, but that doesn't matter. I'll probably start a bit later on, or I may back these ones with one of those separate fly leaves that you can get to stick on the back just to give it a little bit of extra rigidity, but I digress a lot actually. So anyway, so next up, dry. Gesso. I want to add some gesso, so I've got some white gesso. This is white gesso from our friends at Indigo Blue. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this, and I'm going to just use the same brush again, because I've dropped it into some water. Give it a swill around. It's clean. So I'm going to add some white gesso to the page, and then just work it in so that we get a nice kind of grounding, and then when it dries it will die back a little bit and it still show us what's underneath, but it will be light enough for us to work on and add extra colour, but we'll still maintain that kind of interest in the background, so it just knocks it back. We can still see it, but it's just not quite so in your face. So again, I'll get that dried and you'll be able to see exactly what I mean if you've not seen gesso at work before. So do that and then I'll be right back. So just before I go any further, if you are new to art journaling or you've just randomly stopped on this video on YouTube and are just wondering what I'm up to, the white paint that I've just put down is a ground. It's a primer, and it has a kind of very fine but gritty texture to it. And what it does is it coats the surface, knocks back what's there. If there's anything, if you're putting it over the top of anything. But if you just put it on the page as it was, it creates a nice tooth for any paint or medium to stick to. But because it's got a barrier against the paper, it's not, your paint that you put on next is not going to soak straight into the paper. So you do have a little bit of extra time to be able to work the paint on the surface before it dries. Without the gesso, the paint would just soak straight into the page and you'd not be able to move it. So that's what the gesso does. So it will knock back anything that you cover it with, but also it creates that barrier and allows you to be able to work with it even though it's got a little bit of a tooth. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so prime example is I'm going to get a wet wipe. This is just a bog standard baby wet wipe, and I've got some nice turquoise paint, and I'm going to put a little dab of turquoise paint in a couple of areas just around the page, so 2 or 3 areas around the page. And using that wet wipe, I'm going to wipe the paint onto the page. Now, if I'd not put the gesso down, where the paint's touching the page, it would have immediately soaked in and you'd have a circle of dark paint. Even if I wiped the top part off, you'd still have that circle where it had bonded into the paper. Because we've got that gesso on, you don't get that. So I'm just going to work the paint across the page. So a very, very subtle and nice kind of gentle colour. But because we've got that barrier of the gesso, we can manoeuvre the paint around the page. And even when it's dry, if we didn't like it in certain areas, we can still remove some of it. So the paint I'm using is Dina Wakley acrylic paint, which is permanent when dry. It's water-based, but it's permanent when dry. That's if you don't have a barrier underneath it. Okay, so my turquoise paint is now dry. There's kind of a harsh line just there. So I'm just going to just rub gently and you'll be able to see how the paint just comes off. And again here, nice and gently, and it will just come back off again. That's what happens when you put gesso down first. Without the gesso, you wouldn't have had a cat in hell's chance of doing that. Okay, so now that we've got that, I'm bringing in my tissue paper, the collage paper, again from Dina Wakley. So this time I'm going to just tear, I don't want that black line. That black line looks really ugly. So, for my project anyway. In another project it probably would be fantastic, but for this particular project I think it's going to look a bit ugly if I include it. So I'm just going to remove, just by tearing, I'm just going to be very kind of gentle with it. Try not to get too close to the edge. And I don't particularly want to use scissors either. I'd rather have the raw edge of the tear because it will feather into the page. So we've got a little bit at the top there that we don't particularly want. Just like that. Get rid of that little bit there as well because it's a stark line. And then we can go across the bottom. Well, actually I think it's going to come off there anyway. So probably if I do it about there, so I know exactly where to start tearing. So of course now I've folded it, it started tearing in a straight line. Don't want that. That'll do. Okay, that's no longer in a straight line. I've obviously got the straight line there, that's fine. but that is just what I want there. Let's get rid of those pieces and then bring back that Galleria matte medium, which is a glue again, but also can be used once it's down as a little bit of a ground. And then we'll just add some of that matte medium onto the page, grab the brush again. Now you can add colour to matte medium if you want to. So if I wanted to tint this, I could, but I'm not going to, so I'm just going to go all over the page. And I'm going to seal in that colour. Now because this is like tissue paper, once it's down, it's down. And of course it's very, very delicate, so I'm just going to lightly lay it down, and hopefully we're not going to get too, we will get some wrinkles and bubbles, but that's fine. So if I just gently go over the top and then just add a little bit more just to seal it in. Just really gently because I don't want to tear it. There we go. Okay, now it's just unfortunate that the tissue doesn't disappear completely, because that would just be ideal if it did, but because of the nature of the beast it doesn't. So let's just get that dried off. So once it's dry, then I'll be right back. Okay, so tissue paper has dried quite nicely. It's still a little bit warm. Let me just zoom in a little bit just so you can see a little bit better. There we go. Hopefully that's going to focus quite nicely. Let's just make sure I am focused in. There we go, that's better. Much better. Right, you can see a bit clearer now. So we do have a few kind of wrinkles in the paper just there, but that's fine. But the edges, as you can see, have kind of disappeared. You can't really see where the edge is because I tore it, which is just what you want really. So the next thing is I'm going to start introducing some more colour into the back of the page now. So that blue's shining through. You can see the pattern underneath the tissue paper, which is great. So I'm just going to introduce a little bit of other colour, but not a lot. And I am going to actually introduce this and actually start using my finger, just so that I've got a little bit of control about where the colour is actually going. Okay, I'll just grab a wet wipe, it says, knocking everything over. Because that ground is still there, we can fade some of this paint out if we want. Leave it darker in other areas, lighter in some. And we can feather it in. I'll take it away as much as we want. So I've got some little green colour in there. Just to balance it out, I'll add another little bit over here. Don't need a huge amount, but I'm also going to add some across the top. Just really lightly. Okay. That's more like it. It's starting to look a little bit more how I wanted it to. So let's get those bits dried off. Okay, so now that I don't think I told you what colour was, did I? So that was the olive, the Dina Wakley Media olive. So far we've used turquoise and we've used olive, just on the colours on the background there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to now start adding in a little bit of stenciling. So for that I'm using Vintage Photo Distress ink. So this is the permanent one. There obviously is the water-based non-permanent one, but I always like to use permanent where I can. So I'm going to be using the Dina Wakley stencil. So this is the affirmation stencil. So I'm going to line that up on the page so that it's coming over this side, and I'm going to load up my ink blending foam. And my Vintage Photo ink is starting to dry out, so I'll probably have to just go a little bit stronger than I would do normally, and I'm just going to go over, and I'm not bothered if I actually go over onto the next page, this page here. Then I'm going to come down and I'm just working the stencil in a circle, sorry, the foam in a circle, just to kind of catch where I can. And it's not a real strong thing. It's not like I'm spraying, you know, with paint or anything like that. So you're not going to get a real pronounced kind of lettering effect. It's actually going to be quite subtle, so I'm going to hold the stencil in place. See, not dark enough, so that Vintage Photo is probably now outlived its usefulness. So I'm going to bring in a different one, which is a slightly darker colour, and I know there's more juice, if you like, left in that one. So because I haven't moved the stencil, you can see by how much colour it's added onto the actual stencil itself how juicy that one is, so that's much better. So I can bring that across into that page, just so we've got a little bit of tying in. Now when I lift it up, there you go, that's much better. Happier with that. Now I'm also going to just add a little bit more just up here. There. Okay, happy with that. Get the lid on properly. There we go. That's probably one of the reasons why it's dried out, because I never get the lids back on properly, which is probably all my fault, but don't tell anyone. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just bring in the next colour. So Sedona. So thank you to the many people who left comments on the last time when I used this, because I said I thought Sedona was in California. It's not, it's in Arizona. There we go. So again, I'm just going to use a real small amount and a small brush. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that Sedona paint. It's not bright cherry red or baby pink. So what I'm going to do is just, actually that brush is probably too big. Let me see if I can find a smaller one. That should do. That should do me. Let's pick up a little bit of water. Just activate that paint a little bit. And I'm going to just add in just just a little bit of colour on her lips. So I'll just go a little bit darker there and around the bottom. Just like we've got a natural highlight. I think that'll do. I'm not going to add huge amounts of colour to this. I just want to leave it kind of au naturel, if you get what I mean. Don't want to overpaint it because I think it's going to lose some of its charm if I try and do that. As in the way that it's actually being drawn by Dina. So I just want to go back over, dry that off. Okay, so next step is for me just to lubricate my throat a little bit. Oh, it's better. I'm going on a little bit of a detox. I'm trying to cut out at least 75% of all the caffeine that I drink. So this is just sparkling mineral water, if you're interested. It's not gin or vodka or anything like that. More's the pity. Anyway, so that page is just starting to curl a little bit now. So I'm just going to grab a clip and just see if I can hold it down a little bit. Ooh, this is reaching for another. There we go. That'll do. That just helps just to hold it down a wee tad. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is just, I've got some more of that music paper. So this is old music paper now. So this is from an old hymn book by the looks of things. I'm just going to pop out 3 circles. And I'm just using a Stampin' Up 1.5 inch circle punch. So uniform sizes. And then what I'm going to do with those is bring back in that matte medium again, which is just there. Pop the lid. And I'm just going to add a little bit of matte medium. Let's get that brush. There we go. And I'm just going to add 3 of those circles of music. Come on there. I'll add another one just there. Adding a repetitive motif into your art journals is a really cool thing to do. Whether it's circles or whether it's a repeating pattern of the same shape, doesn't really matter, but repeating patterns really are great little motifs to have or include in an art journal page. It helps to kind of pull things together and helps everything hang, if you know what I mean. It seems to go really well. So they're really good tricks and tips, if you like. Repetitive motifs, patterns, music, and odd numbers. Odd numbers are cool. Like when you're planting flowers in a garden. If you're putting even numbers down, it doesn't look quite so natural as if you put 3 in a bunch, or 3. You know, because there's an odd number, it appears more random. I know. Gardeners will understand. Art journaling is the same. Odd numbers are better. Those 3 circles are now stuck down nicely, they're dry, and the pages had a little bit of time to cool down. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to come in with a food ball pen, 1.5, and these are again distributed by Ranger. They're from a company called OHTO, which is a Japanese company. They are pigment inks, and they write on just about anything. So if you have difficulty finding a pen that will write over the top of acrylic paint or anything like that, this will work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to, because we've got a kind of sketchy drawn girl, is I'm going to just go around and add in some sketchy circles just to kind of tie all those together. And then what I'm going to do just to finish off is I'm just going to write in my own handwriting the word sing. And I think I'm actually going to leave it at that. I'm not going to do any more to it. Sometimes, you know, it's okay to step away from an art journal project when you think you've got to the stage where if you do any more to it, you think you might ruin it. I know it's very simple, I know it's very plain, there's not a lot going in there, but I think the balance on this page is just about right. So therefore, I'm not going to do any more to it at all. Apart from, just over here in the corner, is I'm just going to sign it. And I'm going to put today's date, which is the 5th of February, just so that reminds me when I created the page. That's it from me. That's all I'm going to do today. So I hope you've enjoyed watching that art journal page come together. If you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up, share the video with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, to see more videos like this one, I do upload 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes even more. Then please hit that subscribe button at the end of the video. That's all from me for now. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye for now. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of my angels, because without you, these videos would not be possible. Thank you.